want to live.
Give me food, give me clothes, give me love, and give me shelter.
Simple life is all we want to live.
Give me food, give me clothes, give me love, and give me shelter.
Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our listeners across the globe, from Monrovia to Minnesota, from Pittsville to Philadelphia, from Gardnersville to Delaware. Welcome to the We2 Movement Podcast, where truth is spoken without fear and where the minds of a sleeping people are stared awake with a fire of reflection and responsibility. Tonight, under the theme, Liberia at 178 years of independence, reclaiming our sovereignty, a Pan-African call to action. We ask the uncomfortable yet necessary question. What are we truly celebrating? 2 days ago, July 26 marked 178 years since Liberia declared itself independent, the first Black republic on the continent, on the African continent, so to speak. But in the face of the celebration, there lies contradiction. In the midst of the music and masquerade, we must confront our national paradox. Thousands gathered in various U.S. states and cities, flags were raised, speeches were made, but few dared to address the soul of this day. Instead, dancing replaced dialogue, glamour silenced truth. Once again, the essence of liberation was drowned in noise and nostalgia. But today, here on the platform, we will reclaim the day. We reclaim the conversation. We sit under the weight of truth, not to shame, but to awaken. Liberia, at 178 years, is still a nation begging for direction, still outsourcing its future, still fractured in spirit. How do we call ourselves independent when we cannot feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, or care for ourselves? Kwame Nkrumah once declared, we must unite now or perish. We must recognize that our economic independence recognizes or resides in our African unity. And so we ask, where is our unity, Liberia? Where is our direction? Where is our independence? This is not just a national reflection. It is a Pan-African call to action. Liberia should be leading. We wear the bacon, the motto, the hope of Garvey, of Tubman, and Du Bois. Yet today we remain the eighth poorest country in the world, blessed with diamond and gold, yet cursed by corruption and disunity. Our children walk barefoot on roads made of broken promises. Our citizens stand in long lines for passport to leave the land their ancestors built. We export rubber, yet import hunger. We dig iron ore, yet our homes are rusting shanties. Steve Biko reminded us the greatest weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So I ask you, my fellow Liberians, what is wrong with us? Today, on this podcast, under the leadership of the We2 Movement and its visionary direction, we sit down with one profound voice, Mr. Gebah S. Kamara, to dissect the state of our republic. This is not another chat. This is a postmortem on the wounded nation, a rebirth through reflection. The question now here, as we continue this podcast, first and foremost, I'd like to welcome to the podcast our one and only guest, Mr. Gebah S. Kamara. Gebah, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ayiti, thank you so much for this wonderful We2 podcast. Thank you for keeping the show alive and disseminating information to our people and reaching out to the masses and providing the essential education that they need. I know, like you said, we are not in the business of manufacturing crooks. We are here to, educate and disseminate, truth and bring about constructed, discussion as well as constructed, argument, and also to give constructive, feedback to where our country should be and where we are, heading. So I am, as always, excited to be part of this, informative platform, and look forward to sharing our thoughts on Liberia at 178 years of independence, reclaiming our sovereignty. So thanks again for hosting, and look forward to the show.
Thank you very much, Jiva. As is always our tradition, we'll go right ahead and take our gadgets respectively and see if we can share the show so that we can have as many viewers. So if you have your gadget, Jiva, you can go ahead and share the show if you like. I'm going to go ahead and do the same. The show is being aired on Facebook as well as YouTube. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today is an exciting show. As Jiva mentioned earlier, as we all know, the We2 Movement, we're not in the business, we said, of manufacturing players, pimps, and hustlers, but rather we're in the business of changing and revolutionizing the thought process of our people, not only in Liberia, but even around the world. So, Jiva, the question that I have here today, as we celebrate the past several days, not only several days, I wouldn't even say Saturday, because I believe the entire last week, we gather and raise flag. There were speeches at city halls from Minnesota to Philadelphia to Delaware to North Carolina. But the real truth is there was a lot, I thought, distraction-wise to that. People were there celebrating. And I think the true meaning for which we have our independence, I thought that there was a little bit of distraction. How did we get here? What did we go wrong? What's your thought?
Again, thank you. For me, with regards to the celebrations that was here in different, part of the United States, though it looked, it looked fragmented because it was, pocket of celebrations in different areas. But I kind of tried to pick up the opportunity that, these celebrations brought, right, in terms of awareness. Particularly, we look at Minnesota. I think the lieutenant governor, was present at one of the events in Minnesota, and I think there was the declaration or proclamation that was made for Liberian Day. I believe this probably was one of the highest turnout of Liberian in Minnesota for independence celebration, and I think with that it brings awareness to the country itself. So I was just kind of like pondering on, how did we get here, right? And then looking at, the recent visit by Joseph Boakai and that whole fiasco that happened in the White House and the opportunity that itself, presents, right? I always remind people whenever there is an obstacle or when you are faced with challenge, whenever you fall, don't just wake up and think about, oh my God, I'm lying on the floor, right? Or wondering why did you fall, right? But learn a lesson from there. So I've said this to say that the incident of the White House visit with Donald Trump and Joseph Boakai, brought some level of opportunity for Liberia, which was, we did talk about it in previous show as to how that opportunity could have been galvanized and extended in a way that would have bring more attention and awareness to, to the country Liberia. However, the focus was on Liberia and how we spoke, or the president spoke, better English. So there was social media posts of Liberia, in the millions. So I think, right, when I look at all these different celebrations that happens, I think that alone brought some level of pride to Liberian to want to show up there, to show themselves as Liberian, because they were recognized by the United States I don't know if that should be anything at all, but hey, we were proud, right? That,
Right.
we speak English, right?
Right.
And our president spoke good English. And America, social media platform and news media that don't talk about Liberia at all, right? But we were in the news.
Right.
So as such, it brought some level of pride to most Liberians and wanting to go out there to showcase themselves to be from this country that is in Africa that's for English, right? So what I'm trying to get at here is sometimes bad press can become an opportunity. Sometimes a bad encounter can turn out to be an opportunity. And I think with all of these, celebrations in major cities, this was probably one of the highest turnout of Liberia in major cities. So that itself brings opportunity and more awareness. Now, I know that, it was some, desultory in terms of, fragmented, because it was so many different package of, random pop-ups that was not focused on one particular goal. However, I want to look at the opportunity that it brought and the awareness that it brought, particularly to Liberians, and most Liberians who, like our kids, who are born here and don't, have that much attachment to the country, but just saying that their country or their, parents or, where their fathers and parents are from, the flag of that country was being raised all, in many cities in America, followed by pride celebration. I think itself, I want to look at that as a positive, but could we have, governor more to concentrate our focus on bringing that awareness in the sense of, development and concentrated, focus? Maybe we could have, but on the other side, I would say, it brought some awareness to Liberian, and definitely, I think, I give you a plus, for that.
100%. So Jiba, I think to a large extent, I agree with you on that note that this 178 years of independence actually brought together a mass group of our people. Just like you suggested, it seems like this turnout to a large extent is just one of the largest that we've ever seen in the history of Liberia. So it brings to mind why, and just like you alluded to, I believe strongly the 5 presidents from Africa visit to the United States. With the question from Trump that was asked to our dynamic president, Joseph Boakai, his response, Trump stating that beautiful English kind of raised a lot of concern. But what do you think? Because at the end of the day, we are 178 years. Do you really think that us gathering was really geared towards how can we, I know it was geared towards a great celebration, but just in the context of 178 years, the real truth is, what are we really celebrating? And with this mass gathering, whether or not it was in Minnesota, it was in the Philadelphia area, North Carolina, because I had called a mentor of mine who told me that they were just getting ready for their red carpet. Then state like I believe New York, New Jersey, and also Delaware. So my question now, just like you said, yes, we gathered in number. Do you really think that we had gathered under the umbrella, or that theme, understanding that yes, we are 178 years? What does it really mean, to be independent and to be around for 107? Do you really think that it resonates with the masses, or this was just another show? What's your take on that?
I think I kind of, follow along with what you just alluded to. I think it was more of a showcase and being part of the crowd than actual understanding of historical, nature of what the independence means, right? You and I know that most Liberians are not in tune with their history, right? And for those of us that, have fragmentary memories of Liberian history, we are not incorporated into the sense of, patriotism, right? So, yes, we love Liberia. We often will say that we love our country, but there's different reasons as to why each of us love our country. We love Liberia in different ways. We all don't have the same love for Liberia in the same way, right? Because it's not a natural, a national, or patriotic, core of value that was taught in school so that we, take that coat and wear it, like in many countries, people are patriotic because of, their historical achievement of their country and what they have achieved throughout the process. We are not like that, but we do still all love our country for different reasons, right? So for me, I see that the celebration that was going on in different part of the country and the jubilation was probably because some people wanted to be in the same space as their friends, their colleagues. There was the party was going on, and some wanted to be in the party. But what was the reasoning behind it? What are we celebrating? What are we proud of? Right? A lot of our folks don't need this history of Liberia that we can take to say, oh, you know what? Because of these reasons that we are proud to being a Liberian, other than just a mere, word that, oh, I'm a Liberian. So from that light, I would probably say, yes, there was huge jubilations, but do most of these people actually know, or do most of these people actually has a sense of the historical, creation of Liberia and what Liberia being able to achieve and accomplish, and what our standing on the international scene looks like, 178 years ago, what does that look like, right? And where are we, and what are we bringing to the table? I don't think most people understand that part, other than, just being part of the celebration.
And Jiba, that's something that really got to me over the weekend because how because I had called a friend of mine and we were talking and I said, look, even before that I think I did a short. I call it more like a monologue and I was driving from work. And so I asked the same question in Liberia 178, and uh, you know, the focus was on our true sovereignty, and it was just to actually call our attention to actually focus on the realities, those things that we're confronted with. And for me, I thought that, and a lot of people, not to sound redundant, actually still do not understand the true meaning of independence and what they were celebrating. Because the question now I have for you, when this celebrate, because let's say prior to the Civil War, July 26th was something big, and people reflect on, okay, this is the day that we gain our independence, X, Y, Z, and the whole nine yards. But it almost seems to me like this one was more of, oh, let's go out there, let's celebrate. We speak good English like birds on the mind. But what benefit is it bringing? But on the flip side, what now can we leverage from such mass gathering? What can we do as a nation? Because it seems like, yes, it may seem to a large extent that we gather, we were all in the same space. But just to look at the positive side. What can we leverage from this mass gathering so as to kind of push this country to another level? What's your take on that?
It's funny that you said that because when I was looking at these gatherings, especially particularly in Minnesota, and I was just I was just going mentally like just traveling this distance and imagining all of those people in Minnesota, all of those Liberians. I know they all have different skill set, different level of education and achievement. I was like, how I was imagining, right?
Yeah.
If we can galvanize that energy, those talents that we have here, and take it from the diaspora and put it on the mainland, how would that translate? What would that translate to? I thought about it, and then I look at, New Jersey, same level, huge. I look at Philadelphia, brilliant Liberians in so many different spheres, different fields, different professions. If we can leverage all of those talents and put it in one space, have it concentrated, imagine what that country can look like. All of those young people that was celebrating, right? If we could only find a way to tap into those talents, encouraging them, not even to settle home, but just, I don't know how many of these people are being back to Liberia, right? Because some of these kids were born here from Liberian parents. Some of them had never probably even been there. But imagine if we can, redirect that huge celebration of Liberian for July 26th, redirect it back to the mainland. Imagine the tourism dollar that would come out of that. Imagine the possibility for infrastructure development. Imagine the possibility for some of these people come in and say, you know what, I think I like it here. I'm going to stay here. Because it is the same direction that today Ghana has. Come December, Afrochella, huge direction of Ghanaians in the diaspora as well as African American and other Black folks. They all direct their attention to Ghana. At the result, it brings in huge tourism dollar into that country. So why, if we develop the infrastructure to allow this kind of celebration that we're having here for Liberia independent to be done in Liberia, where it's the day of call, right? Like they had to do the Afrochella, the day of Africa, right? The day of Liberia, where we can facilitate that process to make it much easier for all of these celebrations to have heavy concentration of that in Liberia. Because these people coming with real dollars. They're coming with US dollars. They're coming with investment opportunity, coming with ideas. Imagine the economic that you can build from that, right? So those are the things that I was thinking about. I was like, wow. But that has to be something that, our folks up there have to look at and perhaps be able to tap into that, that jubilation, that excitement about Liberia, because I think most people right now, most Liberians have been sitting in the corner after that recognition of a good English. Most Liberians have really started voicing themselves up, I'm Liberian. They're more proud now to say that, and like I said, sometimes bad press often come up with some, good positivity. So that's what I was kind of looking at, but I don't know, just the mere celebration showing up on the soccer field, translate to anything at all, because there was no rallying cry for any particular thing, right? I did not see, a program that was held to invite Black Americans into the picture, right? Like even congressional Black Americans, as well as business people, bringing them into the picture, tapping into them, making them to understand that the celebration we are having today in America and Liberia, of this country, land of liberty, was, started from your foreparents, started from here, started because of you. So we need you to be part of the celebration so that we can tap into that energy, right? And translate those energy back into the mainland where it can become, something of a meaningful, process that can, pretty much translate into economic development, social development, cultural connectivity, tourism, and all that different stuff. I don't think those things was done, right? And I don't know what the organizer was thinking, but again, it comes back to knowing your history and not just knowing it, but appreciating the history and learning about it and embracing it. If you don't know it, you're definitely not going to take advantage of these opportunities that, that this celebration could have presented. Because again, for this Waka incident, it brought to the lips of many Black Americans that were the country Liberia. I have Black American friends who been talking to me about Liberia, very excited. Oh man, this was the food. They didn't know that we speak English over there. Yeah, we fought at that country. I thought, oh, you know about that too, huh? So, it was a great opportunity that we could tap into. It's still not late, but you have to have people who have that much more broader thinking about tapping into the opportunity that this whole fiasco White House, meeting presented, because again, it's an opportunity. As much as we kind of alluded to it to being an insult, but it definitely brought an opportunity along with it.
Perfect. And so, Jiba, I haven't said that because now that we're talking about Liberia 178, yet the country still look to the outside world for her salvation. This is a country that is not able to feed herself. She does not think for herself, does not run her economy. We look up to IMF or World Bank, and we look up to the Western world for our salvation. So, I think it takes us to a place where we have to ask the question, what does it really mean to be independent? And in that case, would you really say that Liberia is independent? Because for a second, I actually wanted to go, and to be a part of one of. I wish I had the opportunity because my goal was to go out there and to ask individuals who were in attendance, what does it mean to be independent? And the next question probably would have been, what is your responsibility as a citizen? And that's something we're going to come up to. Yeah, but in your opinion, just now that we're having a discussion, what do you think it means to be independent? Because I feel as though if we were to sit down, with this mass gathering that we had, do I have a single objective, not only just to go and say, but to go and educate our people on the theme as to what it means to be independent and to give the historical context of Liberia's independence, then we can now begin to drive some level of consciousness where, yes, it's true that we're celebrating, but what we're celebrating freedom, our liberation. But the truth of liberation with our transformation is deception. So the real truth, and that's why I was asking, what were we really celebrating? Is Liberia truly independent? That's my question to you.
Just to get back to the previous the previous statement, I think if given the opportunity, I think it would have been a really good time to have gone out there and really do a live show of We2, movement, like asking Liberian this question, because I think it's a very important question that should have been, maybe asked of those people, out there celebrating, to kind of just get their intake and use that as a, learning education. But it's something that can always be done again. But just to answer your question, is Liberia truly independent? I think I kind of look at it from a different perspective. We can say politically, I think we are independent politically, right? Because you still have countries that are dictated by, world power or former colonizer. And I'll take one example is Cameroon and France, right? I know many other, and other African countries, fortunately, many are breaking away from, the control of France politically. But for Liberia, I think we have been fairly independent of America. And we have been able to make decisions, in our interests, whether it's good or bad. That's something that can be discussed at a later date. But I think politically, I would say we are independent. Now, full sovereignty depends on so many other things, right? To have a full sovereignty, you need to have, control of your economy, right? You need to have control of, your developmental goals and agenda. Those are things that should be dictated, controlled by you, financed by you. But we don't do that. We are, parasite in terms of we have to depend on other country to even meet the mere, right? The basic thing that every human being are entitled to. When you look at the, Maslow, hierarchy of needs, right? Food, shelter, clothing, security. Those are things that we still depend on other countries to support us to be able to provide to our people. So with that said, your sovereignty is not 100% in your hand. You may be politically independent, where you have the structure to organize political parties, regardless how many there are, right? Which is a whole different thing. But you have that structure. Now, we do know that big power picks side on which political party they want to support, but at least we do have that independent to structure those things on our own. And the Liberian people have a say in those processes, right? I don't want to go with no conspiracy theory here. I'm looking at facts and what's on the ground, what has been reported. Liberian people still have the access to control, to be part of those decision-making process. Where I do differ with, independent and sovereignty, is those basic needs. We don't have that sovereignty to control our own economy. We don't have the sovereignty to control our security. We don't have, the sovereignty to control our development. And part of the reason is because we don't have the resources, financial resources to really implement those things at our own accord. We have to depend on the IMF dictating to us on what they want, terms and agreement that doesn't always fit, the African continent, often benefit, the lunar, right? Not the borrower. And of course, the IMF has been a disaster in all over Africa. And we still continue to use, this very institution. We've been using them for I don't know how many years, and we stay stuck in the same place or even worse. So that just tells you that it's a system that needs to be abolished. It's a system that, that we don't need to use. But I don't know if African leaders have any other alternative to that. But the guy in Burkina Faso have found an alternative. So it's a choice. So yeah, independent, sovereignty. I think politically we are independent. Sovereignty, no.
So, in other words, it seems to me, because I've said it thousands of times, that Liberia is independent on paper, but in actuality, we are not independent, because it goes back to 1822, and when the country gained independence, we see from 1847 to 1862, Liberia was not recognized by the United States. And this is a country from 1862 to 1980, even to the 1990s, has Liberia really sustained herself? Has Liberia really produced for herself, tap into her resources? So this is a country with all the minerally rich natural resources we have, but we still look to the outside. Well, I do really agree with what you say. And it takes me back to, one thing that Thomas Sankara once declared. He said, "He who feeds you controls you." And here we are. Yet today, Liberia we're stretching our hands outward instead of digging inward, because if we're to, just like you alluded to, now we have Traoré, who a 37 years of a young man who would take over and would begin to, leverage from the ancestors, Thomas Sankara and other, African, who would say, our leaders who came before him, and now is working for. But someone would say, because I asked someone the same question, and they were telling me that Burkina Faso, which is a land of the upright, her condition is very unique, So, but one question I want to ask just before I go to the next question: when did the celebration of independence actually become a distraction from the responsibilities of freedom? Because if we really understand what it means to be free, do you think that we will be acting in such manner? Go back, even look at your flag. What is this? What the symbolic meaning of what the red, white, and blue, what it means? What it means when we say the love of liberty brought us here. Who are the us? Because people were in Liberia before, But I don't want to get too critical, because sometimes I start thinking and my mind's going all over the place. So now it brings me into a question that I want to ask you. What does Liberian citizenship truly mean? I want to, because you've written books and you've talked about Liberia. So what would you, what would you say to that question? What does Liberian citizenship truly mean? What it means to be a Liberian?
It's a really great, really great questions that have so many historical context to it. If you want to go back into, history from the creation of the country itself, because you have to understand that native Liberian were not considered Liberian at all. We were not citizens of that country. Many Liberians don't even know that, right? You look at the Constitution of Liberia, all the way till the 1980, before the deform, before the Constitution was deformed or dethroned by, the military regime, and a new Constitution was established that recognized the native population, right? So you're talking from 150 years. You, me, our parents were not Liberian by paper. Yeah, we were born there. But every country has constitutions. The Constitution is the operational framework of the country, that governs all the different layers of what this country is all about. For us, we were not, right? In the Constitution, yes, there were inroads made by few presidents, starting from, Barclay, and then all the way into Totman, who, because at that time, the same system they have here, if you don't own land, you could not vote.
Right.
So the native Liberian were not allowed to vote. So when you look back on, to your question, the love of liberty brought us here, it was not you. It was not talking about you, based on the Constitution of Liberia at the time, up to 1980. They were not talking about you. It was talking about the Black American settler who went, into the country. So yes, they celebrated independence, right? Because they were independent, from America, right? They were free. of slavery, prosecution, lynchings, and all of the ills that this country perpetrated on them.
So I'll hold you there. So the freedom that they're celebrating was for one people, and here we have the indigenous who were on the line. I mean, in the country were not included. So you're saying that the love of liberty that brought us here did not apply to certain
did not
people.
apply to us,
Right.
to our people. Yeah, because we young, so we probably got the benefit of 1980 Constitution rewrite, where we were recognized as citizens of Liberia. But prior to that, we were not considered citizens of Liberia by the Constitution. Those are facts, right? Because it was not intended for us. Okay? So those people, they celebrated that independence. So you can understand why they celebrated July 26th as a day of independence, because Liberia was forced to declare independence simply because she was trying to not be colonized by Great Britain and France, who have close proximity to Liberia at the time. They were threatening them, right? ACS could not support Liberia any longer. American government had turned their back on Liberia at the time, right? So the best thing was to do, they said, well, you guys are not really a country, you guys are like a settlement here. So we can really come and conquer you. And half of the land had already been stolen or taken away by France and Great Britain. So that's kind of springboard the idea of, all right, we need to declare our independence so these people can leave us the fuck alone. Sorry for my French. So, they can leave us alone. And that's kind of like why Liberia actually declared independence, to be safe from Great Britain and France. Because we would have been speaking French or something else, honestly, right? So it took 15 years for America to even recognize Liberia independent,
right?
15 years after they declared. Other countries did. Even the Great Britain that was threatening Liberia recognized Liberia independent immediately. It was the first country that actually, recognized Liberia independent. Same thing with France, followed by France, the Netherlands, and all these other countries. 15 years before America finally accepted. There was a lot of different reasons for that, but we're not getting into that for time. So the Constitution was not designed for us. It was designed for those settlers. So when they celebrated independence, you can understand that those people celebrated those independence because of all that they went through and what they were being able to accomplish. Because there was a time where, Black people, right, especially coming from America, had never controlled anything at all. And these were a group of people who go in to establish a country. It was a failed adventure. A lot of people say, man, you guys you can't pull this up. You've been enslaved. You don't even know how to run your own institution. How are you going to go run a whole country, right? But yet they did it. So it's worthwhile to celebrate those things. Now, for us, the native people, obviously, because we don't have that acumen of our history, we fall in the leap of celebrating. What are we really celebrating?
Yes.
That's a question that, I think worth discussing, to know, okay, what is it that we're celebrating? Right? Because in 1980, that recognizes you. 1980 constitutional rewrite is when native Liberian was considered citizen of that country. When you read the old Liberian Constitution, it said, we the people, formerly citizens of the United States, right? We the people who were formerly citizens of the United States. So they were not talking about our grandfathers who they met on the land. But again, because they control all the institution at the time, so we just followed along. So we just going along. The whole independence celebration and stuff, we just going along. Maybe we can celebrate since 1980, maybe we can celebrate that and say, okay, we got our independence because now we are part of, constitutionally, we are part of Liberia. So maybe we can celebrate that. But when you're talking about the 150 years prior to that, that was not for us. It was for the Black American settler to celebrate that. So Liberians celebrating independence at that time. I don't know what they actually celebrating, but we did because that's what was taught to us. But if you look at it right now, I would say maybe are we celebrating since 1980, since we got added into the Constitution as citizens of the land? I don't know. It's a tough one actually. You know, what are we celebrating? Because these are historical facts that people don't know. They didn't teach these things in school.
See, and that's why I thought to bring that to the forefront, because I mean, after all the euphoria, as our resident scholar will ask, what do we do with our national identity? Because the real truth is, I think there's a missing piece here. You know, now that you brought that in, I think you've made it clear that, in fact, and that's why I asked the question using that line, the love of liberty brought us here. Who were the us? Because the indigenous, not that we're trying to bring this divide. So what are we really, really, really celebrating is something here. And that's why I asked the question. If I was to ask you the question, do you, because you've written a series of books, and I know one of your books actually is focused on Liberia, what it means to be a Liberian. Maybe in the paragraph or a sentence, what would you say?
Well, I mean, to be a Liberian, honestly, other than birthright to the land, you know, which of course make you a citizen of that country, right? And yes, there are responsibilities as a citizen to your country, right? I think we have really not pushed for national pride. You know, so that's why Liberian, when you ask that question, what it means to be Liberian, it's very fragmented in different aspects. You know, you still have Mandingo people who were there before Christianity entered Liberia. Before there was Christianity, there were Muslims in Liberia. But yet still, they still being questioned. They are still being, you know, viewed by some Liberians, you know, most uneducated, and even some of the so-called educated, they still question Mandingo people as not being citizens of the country, right? Knowing very well Mandingo were among the three, you know, major tribes or four major tribes that actually settled in Liberia before Christianity came, before the Black American came in. But yet we still question that. So if you ask a Mandingo person what it means to be a Liberian in a country where their forefathers were part of the founding members of that country and they're still being questioned, they're probably going to have a different answer, right? What it means to be a Liberian. So again, it's fragmented with regards to what it means to be a Liberian, because we don't have a national, you know, alignment on that. What it means to be a Liberian, other than say, well, I'm a Liberian. I was born here. You know, I play allegiance to the flag of Liberia. You know, but one more to that. So that's the national pride that is missing. That's the patriotism, you know, part that I was talking about that is missing.
Right.
You know, we don't have that patriotism in us because we were not taught that. We were not educated about that because the country did not include us in that process. I'm sure the Black American before the 1980 coup, I'm sure they probably were much more patriotic because they built that country, right? They built more than Liberia. So there's some sense of pride in there. They build the institution, they build the political institution, they build the religious institution, they build the economic institution, they build the infrastructure. So you got something to be proud of. When you hear American tell you, oh, I'm proud of being an American, because of the thing that their forefather participated, being part of, to, you know, they were able to build. Right. We can't really say that much about us, right? Because our people were not integrated till lately. Our people got integrated into Liberia, you know, political, economic structure. I would say probably during the Tubman era, because he made an inroad into rural Liberia, opening, you know, path for opportunity to bring them in, you know, declaring, you know, distributing land to different segments of Liberian, you know, tribes, particularly the original tribes, right? You look at the Bassa people. Those were land that was given to them to allow them to be part of the social and, social economic process of Liberia. So if you don't build something, you don't really have a stake in it. You don't really have much of a pride in it. Somebody give it to you or somebody build it for you. Yes, you appreciate it, but there's a level of, appreciation that you're going to have versus if you were part of the, the building process. And that's the part that is lacking. So we now have the opportunity for other native people, right? When Samuel Doe came over the 1980, when we finally took over, the dynamic change, the political structure, economic, change, we were to build a national pride. That was something that's the piece that was missing. That's the piece that would have galvanized all of the Liberian tribes and bring them under one umbrella as one people geared towards one unity, where we could push only unity, not division. But we continue to push that even up to this present. So every Liberian will tell you, when you ask them that question, what it means to be a Liberian, they're going to have a fragmented response to that. Again, like I said to you with the Mandingos, particularly, that example, they're still being questioned. So, yeah, if you ask me for myself personally, I would just tell you I'm a Liberian.
I think you took I think you took a really, really deep dive into the question, because, I always I sit there and I try to define exactly what it means to be a Liberian. My definition one time was, and every time I add to the definition, now I expand it to say that to be a Liberian is to be a descendant of formerly enslaved individuals who were, taken on the transatlantic slave trade, taken to America, and after the Emancipation Proclamation will be given the freedom. But what goal will be taking under the auspices of the ACS to establish a place, called their own, but then would do to the indigenous what their slave masters did to them, and actually qualifies what it means to be a Liberian based on some of the things that you said. Because when the American Liberians landed there, they did not recognize the indigenous as part of this land of liberty that actually brought us here. Yeah. So it means that today we're just celebrating. What are we? And that's why we keep saying, what are we really? So to understand, because we have to come clean. And if you look at Liberia, in the context of her independence, it's synonymous to how America gained her independence. Because America, these are people that left Great Britain in search of greener pasture, felt like taxation, representation, and all that stuff. So they would come here and they would meet the indigenous and take the people land. And it's just, you can see the picture. And that's why I did a monologue I think on July 4th, titled The Illusion of Liberation, Lessons for Liberia. And there's something for us to learn, because it's just like you said, to build an institution. But the question now is, what the people that live there, who they met on the land, what were their culture, what was their tradition, how did they live there? Because they did the same thing, to strip the people of their names, the culture, the tradition, their identity. So these are the problems that we have. And now, how can we really, as a people, sit down rather than jump in the street? Yes, we're celebrating sovereignty, but are we really free? Is the question. And I think there's a lot of things that you brought to the limelight, and I want us to really kind of expand on it. So Jiba, how do we stop depending on others to think for us and begin to think for ourselves? Because again, it goes back to the multitude of people that we saw down there. Oh, I'm going to get my T-shirt. I'm going to get my hat. 1847, the people are having a game on the field. So we got to go there and they'll be playing the music. So we're just part of that. But are we really going there to celebrate our true liberation? Again, to ask the question, not to go all over the place, because I have a tendency of going all over the place sometimes. How do we stop depending on others to think for us and begin to think? I think we're just foot soldiers. You're an educator, you're a writer. I want you to give us, your perspective.
All right, so I would go back to your definition of what it means to be a Liberian. You say you ponder on it, and your definition often throw you back to to be a Liberian is probably to be a descendant of the people who actually migrated to Liberia, settled there, you know, and you're right. You're not wrong about that, right? Because if you like, it's like a business, right? A country is a business. It's run as a business, right? You have your business plan, and you have the layout and functions of how that business is supposed to work, right? You have things in place. Same thing with your constitution. The constitution is a framework, right? Like a business plan to operate a country, and you have framework and mechanism in place. So we were not part of that mechanism. So we can't be celebrating and being proud of it. So you are right when you said to be a Liberian, it means that you are part of the descendant of those people. Because we don't know, there's different names that the Portuguese and other, Dutch people gave Liberia prior to the word Liberian, right? But it was not a structural, political, functioning country. It was segment of people and tribes, in different segments, mostly from the fragmentation of the Sungay, the Malian Empire, people who migrated from those, from the depletion of those great empires, migrated into Liberia, settled. Liberia is the land of immigrants, honestly, just like America, Liberia is the land of immigrants. All those people came from somewhere else and settled. So, yeah, so when you say, your definition to be Liberian, meaning to be part of the descendant of those people, I think you're 100% right about it, right? The difference is we will come back to when the Constitution got ratified in 1980, I think 83 or something, when Samuel Doe, did the rewrite of the Constitution where the native people was included. Now, there was not concerted effort made to educate us about why we were excluded, why are we included in the Constitution right now, and what do we need to do to unify the country, right? We didn't do that. So your question to what would it take, for us to think for ourselves, it's just gonna take education. We talk about this all the time on the platform, regardless of whatever we're talking about. We come right back to education again, right? Unless we can have our history written, right? Written in its phone, not the phone that was given to us. The only history I knew about Liberia going on Mateta Nipo, junkies there, I don't even know who the hell those people are. That was literally it. Nothing more than that. And those are the things that really prompted me to start writing about Liberia history, going way deeper to, okay, Liberia did not just start in when the Black American came. There was something beyond that.
Yeah.
What was it? So that's the part of my book, went in to pick up on those, early settlement of Liberia, how it was formed and how the country was structured, honestly. You had people before the Black American even came. They had people who spoke English because they were exposed to Mexicans that was coming from Europe and doing business over there before even English were introduced as a thing. Yeah. So we have operation that was going on. It was just not a political modern democracy, constitutional democracy as we see it now, right? So in order for us to be able to really start thinking for ourselves, we need to go back to the history of Liberia prior to the Black American arrival, when the Black American arrived, and what all of the political institutions and all of the things that happened during those time period, right? We need to have a concerted effort where we learn and understand these things. Because if you don't know your history, you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. Honestly, you're just gonna be in this tailspin, like a car stuck in the mud. You just keep spinning, 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 and it gives you the illusion that you're moving, but you're really not moving because you just keep digging, digging, more dirt to get stuck again, and then wonder why you stay where you are because you're not really moving. You're not laying the platform. You're not laying the foundation to learn. Why is it that your car is stuck in the mud? What is the, a geographical or geometry that is holding you back? You're an architect, it's the evidence. Something is holding that car from moving. And until you can figure out what is that, to lay a much more scaffold or platform to allow it to move smoothly, you're just going to be stuck there. And that's where we are. Governments upon government, particularly government that have come from the native side. And that's the thing that really hurt me so bad. That we know our people were deprived of education. We know that, right? Many of us, we got lucky at the time you and I grew up. We were much more younger. But our parents before us, many of them didn't have that opportunity to education. Just like the same thing that happened to Black Americans here. But we have the opportunity. We have Samuel Doe. We have Charles Taylor. Despite it was war. We have Ellen Johnson. We have George Weah. We have Barker. All of these people came from the native background. They consider some of them to have Congo background regardless, but they still have native background, right? None of these people have ever put their attention on education. Like I said to you, Liberia need to be, at least from the minimum, free, compulsory, quality education from 0 to 9th grade. Possibly from 0 to 12. Free, compulsory. Now, if we have those kind of structure in place and educate our people, now we have the ability to have generation who will have the ability to think for themselves. Right. Because they know the history, they know where they're coming from. But a lot of our people don't know. You talk to many Liberians cannot really give you a concrete definition of Liberian history because it's not like listening on their part, right? You got to go do a lot of digging before I could write any of these books. Man, I have to go to the library, and they got all our history buried in that place, in the Library of Congress. Virginia, where Joseph Jenkins Robert came from. Those libraries hold depth information on Liberia. These are things that can be unearthed, put into books, put into schools so that we learn these things. Because when you learn your history, it will help you to prepare to challenge or meet the challenges of the future. And we're not there yet. So as a result, we're going to have people thinking for us.
And Keaton, I want to say something real quick. I like that. I think you definitely hit the hammer on the nail there. I know we had a show. Now the question that I did ask you was, how can we move from the position of having the other person doing the thinking for us, where we would be thinking for ourselves? We are not foot soldiers, but we are strategic thinkers. And we talked about. I think we had a topic, reimaging the educational system of Africa. And it's true because I think it's something that you always said, because what was Liberia before the arrival of the settlers? Meaning that, they had their own establishment. But now when they came, eventually our educational system, their formal educational system, which is the tradition, the culture slowly started to fade away, and now you go to Liberia, Gebah, all the kids are speaking English, even in the interior, So I think another way, just like you alluded to, is to start to reimage our educational system, building cultural, traditional, and global competence. Meaning that our educational system should be customized in a way that it fit our domain, because the educational system that we have now is westernized.
Yeah.
So we're not diverting. We're talking about independence. So we want to talk about independence, just like Marcus Garvey once said. He said, "People without knowledge of the history is like a tree without root." So to a large extent, I think what we're talking here tonight is so critical. So for the purpose of our viewers who are just tuning in, you're watching the We2 Liberian Movement Podcast, the podcast that speaks to and for the masses. Our topic for tonight: Liberia 178 years of independence, reclaiming our sovereignty, a Pan-African call to action. We think that it's important for us to begin to teach, go back to our roots, teach our people, self-identity that would bring and restore our dignity so that we can feel, and not only feel ourselves, but to be ourselves so that we can be more productive. And then we celebrate something that is more tangible as opposed to just going out there and we have all these slogans and not really celebrate what it means to be a Liberian. We start talking about our true sovereignty. And that'll take me to this, So like the past several days, I don't think it was time for dancing. And now it's not even the time for singing all the slogans and things of that nature. I think it's time for us to move in a whole different direction. This is not the time for excuses, because a lot of us will sit here, will make excuses. It's not the time for just ranting. I think it's time for execution. So we must build, think, act, and also, just like you said, not only unite, but to also reunite. Because just in Philadelphia, Gebah, you won't believe it, they have two separate Liberia associations. One, we have the Liberia Association of Pennsylvania. Then we have the United Liberia Association of Pennsylvania. So you see this unity. And we talk about it, I think we're on the show, the eloquent speeches that were given on I believe it's July 23rd or 20th, maybe the 24th or 25th at City Hall. Even a good colleague of mine who's now becoming will soon be a councilman did a nice eloquent speech. But how can we translate those speeches into tangibles, something that we can see that will really show our true independence, our sovereignty? And so that's why this episode is actually a mirror for Liberians in the diaspora and at home. For too long, we've pointed fingers outward. Now I think it's our opportunity to turn inward. Because the real truth is, I think we have the problems, but we are also the solutions. Just like Secretary once said, he said, to take part in the African Revolution, it is not enough to write a revolutionary song. You must fashion the revolution with the people. So our people, it was good going out there. And, not that we're trying to put a disdain or we are against all of that, but let's do this with a single goal and objective to see the country transcend from what it is to something more sustainable and tangible, so that, yes, we can be a true country, that is free from some. I know Liberia was never colonized, but we still carry that colonized mindset.
Oh, of course.
Look at what we do. If you don't have a degree from the West, from Oxford University or from Cornell or Harvard University, then even if you were to go to the University of Liberia, which of course the University of Liberia was a top-notch university back in the day, but how can we go back to our own institution when in fact, look at the University of Geneva, or the courage of our ancestors that even built the University of Timbuktu in the city of Sankara. So we build those institutions. Now we're talking about Africa. We're talking about Liberia, but we just want to bring that in. So Gebah, I think there's a lot that we have to do. But I want us to quickly pivot and look at these key discussion points also for tonight, because I think we've spent a lot of time on that. I have three here. One, historical amnesia. and national identity, 2, poverty or the poverty paradox, and then 3, we look at the role of diaspora. 4, we can say from social celebration to structural solution, actionable solution, a call to reclaim, and then we'll be able to conclude. So let me ask you this one question real quick. Why have Liberians forgotten the core essence of July 26th?
It go back to knowing your history. I mean, Liberia was not just always in slumber. Liberia was a leading nation. I was just listening to some documentary of a guy who was, he was literally grieving about Liberia, how Liberia used to be a tourism destination of Black people from the Caribbean and all over Africa. They didn't go to the West, they didn't go to France, they didn't go to London. They all pulled to Liberia, right? And you watch the video that I sent you to watch. You really need to watch that video. You will really be proud of what Liberia looks like back in the day with Talkman. Yeah, he found beaches and stuff where Liberian was like, oh wow, they wore swimming pants, swimming trunks back in the days. I mean, it like when you go to any beaches over here now, that's how it looked like in the 40s, right? And we were signatory to almost every international bodies. People went to Liberia because remember, we were the grandfather, right? We were the first independent country. So we knew what political and democratic and constitutional structure looks like, right? We had that influence, that connection to the West, right? Because the West look at, okay, these guys mirror, what we aspire, right? So most of the time, people will come to Liberia to gain their education. The first president of Nigeria, he got his education from Liberia. You talk about the universities in Liberia. We have some of the oldest institutions in Liberia when it comes to educating, young minds, and great leaders in Africa. The Kwame Nkrumah, all these people got, some level of educations, in that country. So Liberia was Liberia was in the leading front of international body. From the lead of nation to the creation of OAU, from the creation of the non-aligned movement, and so many more. We play international, importance, right? But if you don't know the history if you don't know where you come from, you're certainly not going to be proud of where you're going because you don't even have no clue where you're going, right? But when you embrace your past, right? Yes, history is not meant to make you comfortable. History is meant to guide you, to make you uncomfortable, but to guide you so you don't make the mistake of the past. That's what history is about. So it behooves me when this country, try to burn a history, because they don't want to live with it. And that's why America keep falling short of a social issue because we have never addressed social issues in this country. We pretend like it's not there, and hoping that it go away. No, it only go away when people fix it. The way you fix it is to confront the truth. Liberia have been stroked by division because that was the way that we were separated from one another. It is just the way that Black people have always been treated, right? That separation. Remember, right? It took away our dialect and gave us English, took away our religion and gave us Christianity, took away our religion and gave us, Islam. All of those things, right? It brought division into us. But yet, there's still that human connection, that we all share the same land, that we all roam around the same land, that we all are immigrant into the same country, that we all have one goal. And that goal is to sustain ourselves, to live a better life, to wish best for our kids, our family. We have that one united front. We always will focus on the thing that bring us together rather than the thing that divide us. But for political, gamesmanship, people often brings to the forefront the thing that separate us. So as a result, we have always been fragmented. So when you talk about different organizations here, rather than having the same goal, same mindset, pushing for the same goal, No, they all have different agenda because, again, that fragmentation. And the reason is because we had never have a national unity that is based on understanding our history and understanding our shared value, our contribution, right? I look back at the Kisi people, right? The Kisi people, right? They were one of the most successful tribes in Liberia. They were one of the most civilized tribes in Liberia. These people was already, before the idea of monetary system came about, they were the first, right? The Kisi have their coins. They have monetary system that they use to regulate trade and commerce before Western ideology came in. These people already knew a lot of stuff, right? When you talk about, navigating the water, the crew people, right? The crew and the global, they knew how to navigate, the waterway, the vast ocean, right? With all any scientific means of directing them where they needed to go. They knew. So our people were skilled. They have those skills. But we don't know these things to celebrate them. The Kisi people don't even talk about them in Liberia. We give them all kinds of crazy names that we denigrate them. But when you look at these history of these people, their accomplishment, and so many more. You look at the vibe, the Mandingo. They were the first to have a written script, where communication was actually done on paper. We don't know these things to celebrate. So what are you going to be really proud of? You just woke up and think that your people were fighting war and after war and that's it? What are you going to celebrate? What are you going to be proud of? We got to go back to our history to know where we came from, to know our accomplishment. Yes, every country had their fault. Every country had their division, but it's not for us to run away from. It's for us to embrace and learn from it and make it better. So for me, it bowed down again to education, but you got people in leadership that don't have access to any of these facts, and they're lazy to do any research. They're lazy to find a way to even try to learn. Because I didn't learn these things in school. I learned them because I had interest in learning history. I learned them here. But now things are much more easier. There's a lot of information out there. But we have to change the educational system, like you said, right? We got to go back to incorporate our traditional values and culture back into our educational system. The Western education already never served us right. We know that. This is not just a Liberian thing. This is an African problem. And many African countries now, the smart one, are pushing away some of these, colonialized educational system and incorporating their native educational system. Because if a child know their value, they will protect that value and they will always shine. But if they don't know it, then they have nothing to protect. So it boils down to, to just knowing, our history, appreciating our history, and having an educational system that incorporate those things into us. Not to be ashamed of it, not to be embarrassed of it, but embracing it and, and learning from there. But honestly, we got a long way to go. Honestly, we got a lot of work to do.
All right. So I want us to quickly pivot because we almost about an hour and 30 minutes into the show. I know it gets lengthy sometimes. There's a lot to cover, but we're not going to cover everything. I want us to quickly just look at the let's look at one question real quick, the poverty paradox, and then we'll look at the role of the diaspora quickly, and then we can provide some social celebration to structural solutions. So how can a rich nation be so economically destitute? A country with all the resources, everything that you have, people cannot even feed themselves. You did mention the Maslow hierarchy of needs that talked about food, clothing, shelter, the second level need, I believe belongings and things like that before you talk about self-actualization, all that. I may not be in order, but why is it that this country, I know that someone would say, oh yeah, if we say with the same thing I talk about the illusion of independence in a globally dependent economic or economy, you know what I mean? So how can a resource-rich nation like Liberia be so economically destitute? In your
take all your so-called economists that you educated at Harvard and Yale and Columbia, take them out of the government and dethrone all that educational or economic system that they have learned and exported in Liberia. And this is not a Liberian problem, this is African problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's same thing with Francophone country. They go to France, learn all the French economic system that is designed for that country, for that society, for that culture, and then take it and import it into Africa and try to implement it in the culture and society that does not align with those educational framework. This is what education means. People think you come here, get all these big degrees, and then you go by you're educated. No. Education, you have to be transformative. Your education has to transform people. And if you learn, if you have an education in, let's say, whatever, right? Sociology from some Western education, the mechanism, the theory, it's not applicable. It doesn't mean you should throw it away, honestly, but how do you adjust that theory and incorporate, the theory of the people that you're going to meet, the culture, the society, the environment that you are in, right? To be able to, merge both educational systems together so that you can be able to deliver that transformative, that transformation that your educational, system had taught you, or that the theory had taught you. But if you're just going to, take it, on a both face value, right? What you learn from here, the educational system, the economic system here, and take it to Africa or any other places that does not relate to that, social, economic, cultural ties, and expect to make a difference, it's going to be hard. That's why African nations have never succeeded. With all World Bank policy was designed for the benefactors, for the loaners. They loan money to Africa. They set the term, right, with regards to the development, what Africa needs to do in order to pay back. Their most focus is African countries to pay them back in interest. They're really not invested in how, what transformation is coming out of that, loan that they give you. That loan is also being used to hold African country as hostage because now you owe a lot of money. You can't pay it back because we make it so hard for you. The economic system that we designed for you is not meant for you to get out of debt. So you're going to be in debt. Now you become emboldened to us. So now we have to detect other area of interest that we have to make you.
I want to hold you there before I lose my train of thought. So with an institution like IMF, World Bank, and quite recently Liberia, I think there was a couple of schools that were built, and they were built under the auspices of some funding that would be made available by World Bank. What can we do? Because we see it now, just like you said, because we're talking about true independence. So if we, it's often said that the beggar or the one who receive, from the creditor is often a slave. And so you're right, because they'll dictate to Liberia. What can we do? Because we have our sister country right there. I don't like to go back and forth to this Rwanda. We got Rwanda and we have Burkina Faso that is doing that because it's maybe about 3, 4, 5 years ago it started down there. What can Liberia do? Because I think we're still falling into this trap. I wasn't cutting you off, but I wanted, because you just talk about World Bank. You talk about IMF or World Bank was an institution that you really stressed on. And so I want you to give throw some kind of light on what we can do. You talk about the education assistant. It's true. We have to keep it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought Burkina Faso. And that proves my point. That we cannot import these economic theory that we have learned in these countries and take it for face value in our country and decide to implement it as exactly as we have been taught. Right? Because that failed us. What Burkina Faso did is not taking loan from the IMF. You know that, right?
Right.
Okay.
Obviously. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because to be independent, I think that's something you should do.
So they are not emboldened by that trap.
Yes.
You know, they are not emboldened by debt traps. So, because they clearly understood or understand that all of the economies prior to Abraham, they all went to France, learned all those fancy education. They came back and filled the country. Burkina Faso is one of the poorest countries in the world. I mean, dirt road everywhere, even in the city, dirt road. Right? This boy knows. Just that we're talking. He knew, or he's clearly aware that the system has failed. The system is not designed to move Africa forward. The system is designed to pull Africa in a stronger hole where we become emboldened to them. So as the result, like you said, the debtor is like the slave to the debtor. So we become slave to them, because through that now, they're able to use other aspects of our resources to dictate to us how we can pay that debt that we will never ever finish paying. No African country ever finished paying that debt.
And so Jiba brought that up because we're talking about Liberia at 178. You know, I mean, reclaiming our sovereignty, Pan-African Court of Action. And I think what Burkina Faso is doing is strictly Pan-Africanism.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, mentality or strategy. So you think a country like Liberia can employ that? You talk about the education system, and it's true. It takes your education from theory, bring it into practice. That's why we're talking about everything we're talking about, reimaging the education system for us to be truly able to think for ourselves, to do for ourselves. And if we can do that, that would be better. But I want you to continue with this whole our economy.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You're right about that. You know, so Burkina Faso adopted a whole different mindset. We're not going by World Bank. We're not going to be emboldened by you, by your economic theory that have failed us for over, almost hundreds of years. We're not adopting it because it doesn't work for us. So they don't borrow money from IMF. Don't borrow money from the international community. They tap into their natural resources. Why are we getting money from them? Right? We got all the natural resources that can give us money. So why can't we tap into our natural resources where we can sell it to the world, right? At a face value, at a market value, and use that money. I mean, it's crazy what African countries really do in this 21st century. You know, I get it when we were in the 1800s, maybe the early, 40s and 50s. Today, 21st century. Come on, dude. Come on. This kid is not I call him kid because I'm older than him. He's not a magician. He's just a Pan-Africanism, a Pan-Africanist who have figured out that Western policy, Western education, Western political influence has been the downfall of Africa. So he came out with a whole different mantra, a whole different mindset. That yes, if you want to deal with us, we're going to work on an equal basis. We're going to work as partners. We're not going to be emboldened to you. We're not going to be enslaved by you. We don't need you to borrow us money because we do have the resources there. We can process our raw material here and put it on the international market for the same face value to be able to do anything else. Any other African country can do that. They all have that natural resources at their disposal. But it is the political will, right? It is the intellect, the political will to do that. Go to Burkina Faso today. I forget how many miles, almost a 300-mile road were built. Think that the World Bank says it's not even possible to happen. And if it ever happened, they said the country was going to go into debt forever. And if the project was to even happen, it was going to take over 30 years to build. These people built that thing in less than 6-7 months. Every village was given assignment. Every village was given assignment to cover certain miles of road. Boys, kids, old men, mothers, fathers. These people work with their hands today. Look at that almost 300 miles road. These people were able to build it in less than 3 months. So it is the mindset, like you said, transformative mindset. We just got to stop feeling emboldened that we can't survive on our own without Western power. I mean, I don't know, man.
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what we've been taught. We've not been taught to critical thinking. We've not been taught to think for ourselves. So we allow the West to think for us, other people to do the thinking for us. And that's why even the Quran, I mean, or Jesus himself said, "I've come to set the captive free." So with that being said, I think you really laid out, and hopefully we'll be able to see it, because our topic for tonight is Liberia 178 years old, 78 years of independence, reclaiming our sovereignty upon having called to action. Are we really free? What are we celebrating? What it means to be a Liberian? What it means to own or to hold a Liberian citizenship? I'm telling you, Gebah, if we had the opportunity to have gone on the field and asked these questions, you'll be surprised how a lot of people will actually they will shy away from the conversation, because I think this is really it taps into the mind, in the frame of our mind, to see what we're thinking as a people. It's easy to go out there to have these slogans, to sing all those songs, but at the end of the day, what are we really achieving? What did we achieve? Yesterday, you know what happened, Gebah? They had a big, they would call it homegoing maybe service. They would go to church. The question now is, what are we praying for? Because the thing is, Zig Ziglar said it. He said doing the same thing over and over, expecting new result, is insanity. And this is complete insanity, because we still are not thinking for ourselves. Why should I just go out there? It's good there. We can celebrate. But at the same time, what are we doing? That's why we're asking these tough questions. So that'll bring me to another quick question. And Gebah, I want you to hopefully be quick with your response there. Are we contributing? That's the diaspora, the role of the diaspora. Are we contributing to development, or just social distraction? Just from the local things.
I mean, I think with the diaspora, we have a major role to play. And I believe that, we have not grown the sense of, patriotism that I talk about, the sense of, ownership, the sense of, being able to individually play our own role, right? A country development and build up does not come from just government alone. You look at many institutions in this country and many other countries in the world, government does not really, bring development. Government create the conduit to allow development to come in, right? So that's the role of the government. For example, the government build a road, in major highway. They don't have to build houses there. The people will build. And I give you the common example in Masha. When I bought my land in Masha, there was nothing in there. When I told people about Masha, they were like, "Man, why are you going to buy, land in that place? There's nothing over there, right?" That whole place was bush. I was probably one of the first person that actually, pay the locals to brush the road, from the main road to go almost near John Wesley Place. John Wesley Place was not even there if you're familiar with those areas. That place was bush. But when Ellen laid that road from Marshall to go all the way to Marshall City, where they have the maritime office, the whole place took off. So that's where individual government create the conduit, but the individual citizen built. So I think as diaspora, we all have a responsibility. And we talk about this before on this show. We all, especially for those of us that have the education, opportunity to be educated in this country, the exposure, and maybe, some financial standing, we all have responsibility. Some of us, we have contributed so much to this country now. We're looking back at, giving back to our country. I speak, for myself, I have started that role long before, building the nonprofit, going to Liberia every year, making it as my duty, taking books, computers, building, supplying libraries, establishing libraries, establishing scholarships in various schools, and helping and supporting, young, talented, gifted kids that otherwise would not have been in school if it wasn't for my organization, being able to, pay their tuition. We do this thing in the silent. People like us, you don't see us on Facebook, social media. We'll go to Liberia, people don't even know about us. When we tell them what we do, they'll be like, oh my God, why this government person? No, we're not looking for limelight. We're looking to deliver. We're looking to change mind and soul, right? Because we truly believe that each individual have a role to play in society. I cannot truly sleep if my neighbor is stay awake. I cannot have light in my house while my neighbor is in the darkness and I'm thinking I'm cool and everything is okay. I cannot have a road going from the main street to my yard, right? And everybody else living on gravel road or dirt road. And then I can go to sleep at night and feeling like I'm okay. No, we have to get out of that mindset. We all have a responsibility. No matter what it is, even if it's one child, right? Even if it's going back to your village and contributing whatever meaningful way you can. You don't need to build no skyscraper. You don't need to build no house. You don't need to build all that stuff, especially you're not going to go live there. But even taking your time here, taking a vacation and going there and going to a school and just talking to young people, encouraging them. And I saw you did that. When you went on your trip, you went to so many places that many of us are leaving here with their go-to, right? Talking to the young people, encouraging them, hearing from them. Those are the kind of help that we as diaspora need to do. Not every one of us going to go work in government, but we have different roles to play, right? Whether it's in the educational part, you can take your summer vacation, maybe decide to freelance, go offer a course or class at the end of this university or high school, spend a day in one of these classrooms, talk to the kids, teach a course in whatever your specialty is. I think those little contributions go a long way because now the kids can see that, emulate, and the good thing we're doing good, it's very contagious.
Yes.
People see you doing these things, they come. People have seen us, our job, our work that we're doing in Liberia, from rubber sports, to Magibi, to Brove, to Monrovia. People see on social media, we have so many gifts for books. Right now, as I speak to you, we load in a container, 44 containers with books, computers, school supplies, food, clothes, all kinds of stuff from meaningful people who waiting to just contribute and say, oh, we saw the work that you guys are doing and we want to help. So that's how I think we all can help in so many different ways. No matter how minute it is, it make an impact. Again, I remind people, doing good is contagious. Someone will see that act of kindness and it can reverberate into other people coming to join. So that's the role I think we in the diaspora need to, focus on and need to continuously, do. And I would encourage that we all, take those time, to do that.
Shiva, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. You come so strong with a lot of resources, and I think because that actually leads me to my pretty much you went into my next question: what strategic roles can the diaspora play in economic and ideological liberation? Because yes, and then the brother Dwalo is to a large extent already doing that with the Liberian diaspora. I believe it's called fund something like that corporation, and here to create jobs, and you know what I mean, and we know those jobs would translate into independence and things like that, true liberation. But it is the mindset also, so that ideological liberation. Now, I mean, first of all, the way we think, not allowing someone to think for you, because a lot of the decisions our young people, even the old alike, that they make is as a consequence, a result of what they told. And in the diaspora, Jiba has a lot of influence. They got people in Liberia who don't work. I would say their jobs are, we say, to call overseas, and then they get handout, and then they survive from maybe month to month or week to week. You got people who call for $20. See people, but tap my messenger, my GPS, send me $5. Just think about it. How many people?
Yeah, I know. Not to cut you off. One of my cousins called me yesterday asking for $5. I said, dude, don't never call anyone in America and ask for $5. He said, yeah, I just want get some water and stuff. I said, no, maybe you should call and say, I need some water, I need some food, help me out, and let them decide. I said, you call me for Liberia for $5? It make me think about the crackhead that's standing on the street corner here asking for $5. Because, come on, dude. Yeah, but, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. And see, we're talking about ideological liberation. I mean, not only economic, but also, it's just like, I know we're not going to get to it tonight, just like the protest. A lot of the protests in Liberia, they're not focused on a single, we say, strategic objective. You say, historically, say, for example, protests that were led by Dr. King, Rosa Parks, the likes of John Lewis and all those people. Yeah, it was on maybe human dignity, just like Nelson Mandela, Steve Biko, you go to Patrice Lumumba, and those people. Yeah, it was about
Marcus Garvey. Liberia, the women protests that end up bringing peace to Liberia, led by Yoma Boye, or whatever her name is, the lady that won the Nobel Prize. Those were protests that was focused, that was goal-oriented, and it brought results.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I just wanted to, it's about the ideological liberation, that freedom of us being able to actually think for ourselves. What are we thinking? What do we want for this country, to see this country come up? Because it's like the country's in the pit. People rely on the diaspora. I tell someone, if you don't do this, I won't do that for you. You know what I mean? Or you're lying yourself with this political party but if people are financially independent, if they have financial independence, I think, and then based on that ideological liberation, freedom to think freely, think out of the box, then yes, we'll be moving forward now to true independence. Then I will go in the field, I will celebrate. Like I said, you hear celebrating, what are you really celebrating? A lot of people don't know. They're singing the song, we said, man, this, that, and then we'll go back to business as usual. When we have a whole country, 178 years, soon be 200 years, 2 centuries, we have nothing to show for. We're begging all over the place. We have our natural resources, we're not using it. The country is under, in terms of population, under 6 million.
5.something million
people. I mean? So it's
the population of Philadelphia.
Yeah. So I want us to two more questions, and then we just close up. And this one is from social celebration to structural change. And I want to ask this maybe I'll make it 3. So can we create one unified July 26th celebration? Because it used to happen though. It happened before where when I first came to this country, we all would come from different states and we maybe
I remember.
meet in Pennsylvania, go
to Trenton,
and we'll have this massive game.
Mm-hmm.
But because of I don't know, the population kind of increased and we were not able to manage it, or was because of some financial gain that we got fragmented. So those are problems. So the question that I want to ask, not to go over the place, can we create one unified July 26th celebration on a national framework for change, not for gains, not for money, but for actual change? You think it's possible?
I mean, anything is possible. You have to have a goal, you have to have a goal and an objective first. Once you have a goal and an objective, then you can lay the roadmap, to achieve that goal. And as long as we continue to be fragmented based on, ethnic line, economic line, political lines, and all of those, blurs, then we're not going to have a unified voice to be able to have a national, objective. If our goal is, all right, we want to bring all Liberians together, from all Liberians together, both in the United States and maybe even nearby countries, for one particular goal. And what that goal is, it has to be defined, right? And then you can galvanize towards that. But as of now, we don't have one defined goal. So if you don't have one defined goals, then obviously you're going to be all over the place chasing whatever, side of, the ideological divide that you find yourself on. And that's what is happening. So, yeah, the question, can it be done? Yes, it can be done. But
Real quick, I want to ask you this now, because you already said it's possible. So how can we channel energy from parties into policy? Because it's easy for us to go out there, we're jumping all over the place, we're celebrating. But yes, tomorrow, and then we've had all the church service, we'll go back to. So how can we, just like you said from the very start, the onset of the show, that yes, we can take this energy that we have, we can translate it into something more meaningful and sustainable, just like what is happening in Ghana. Ghana now, you know what I mean? Tourism, just from tapping into the diaspora. So how can we channel this energy that we have from parties into policies? In one sentence, what would you say?
I have always advocated for Liberian, particularly in the diaspora, as well as the government itself, aligning itself with its Black American heritage and root. The reason I say that, because of all the Black folks in the world, Black Americans have the strongest economic power and sway, both politically, culturally, influence, and so many spheres. If we can only tap, and again, like you alluded to, Ghana have already done it, way ahead of the curveball. I've been talking about this thing since 2017 when I wrote my book. I laid a whole platform of roadmap on how it should be done. Try to get it to the George Weah people, but they were not interested in reading because most of them couldn't read. So I get it. However, if we have a unified goal, if our unification or our goal is, okay, how do we mirror what Ghana have been able to successfully done, right?
Right.
We know that our ties with Black American is important and is richer than any other, Black nation out there. How do we tap into our cultural connectivity, our cultural richness, our culture bond that bring us together, and use that opportunity to be our national, objective or driven goal, right? Mm-hmm. To nourish that relationship so that it blossoms into all of the area that we're trying to cover. And they have a national policy towards that. So when that is done, I think together we will be able to have one focused goal to work towards something. But right now, we don't have anything like that. We don't have really one national goal, because if you tell anyone anything else, when they talk about, oh, I don't like this political party, CDC, UP, and all this crazy, stuff that they talk about. Right. So we're not there yet. Until we can, find that one, national goal, then, we're not there yet. But that's one thing I think we can all center around, right? Let's see what Ghana have been able to successfully do in this short period of time, and still be able to leverage. Because Liberia is still a virgin land. I tell people Liberia is this beautiful virgin that you have, but you don't even know her beauty until people look at her and tell you, oh my God, I wish I was married to her. I wish she was mine, right? But you don't know her because you don't appreciate her, because she's in your face every day. But other people see her and be like, wow, dude, you're blessed. That's how Liberia is. I travel all over Caribbean places, and I see places that people admire, flogging in those places. Tourists, visitors. And I look in Liberia, other landscape in Liberia, and I see the same resemblance. I'm like, man, look at Robertsport. Yeah, no different from St. Martin. Yeah, no different from St. Martin. Robertsport don't even have one restaurant. They don't even have one bar. They don't even have one gift shop. Yeah, nothing. Nothing. Yeah, we have waterway all over our country. We don't even have one water transportation. Yeah, we didn't have a national goal. If we have a national goal, then yes, you can galvanize everybody towards that goal. So my suggestion would be probably one of that.
Awesome. Great response. I think I was talking to another colleague of mine, associate, good friend of mine, Napoleon Chapman, aka Stephen Cooper, who once said, had a show title, Liberia's the Blueprint. Liberia's Blueprint. I think, just like you said, that's what it is. If we can have this blueprint in mind, and with a single objective, leverage from Ghana, hopefully Liberia can be better. So for those of you who are watching us, we're coming to a conclusion of our show. We're approximately 2 hours into the show. I think you did a phenomenal job. Our title for tonight, Liberia, 178 years of independence, reclaiming our sovereignty, Pan-African call to action. Just before I ask you to give us a closing remark, I want to use this opportunity to just, enumerate at least several actionable solutions, which is a call to reclaim, mobilizing Pan-African education for Liberian youth, creating platforms of economic self-determination. Those are some of the solutions that we trying to promote here. Initiating a national reflection day every July 7th for post-independence critique, just like we did. Right after July 26th, we should sit down. I think we have these conversations. Definitely we'll be on the pathway to Liberia's renaissance. With that being said, again, ladies and gentlemen, to all of our viewers, this is the We2 Liberians Movement Podcast. This is what we do. We are not in the business, we say, of manufacturing players, pimps, and hustlers. I want to give you, Gebah, an opportunity to give us a closing remark, and then I'll go ahead and close the show. Thank you for coming. Really do appreciate you.
No, thank you, Ayiti, for moderating the show. We touch a whole host of issues relating to our country, and I always admire your passions, your desire and your tenacity to keep this show going and to continue to shine light on issues concerning our country. We all love Liberia. We love this country dearly. We see the potential in the country. One thing that I see most is the potential. The country, has so many potential, and leveraging those potential, is key to our economic development, our sustainability, as well as, relinquishing our, ourselves from, the colonial, slumber that we continue to, be stuck in. So as we continue to shine light on this, issue and talk about, solutions, we hope that, fellow Liberian all across the globe and individual watching this show, hopefully learn something from this, and together that, we can all, put our minds and head together. We are one, one country, one people, and, we can build a better Liberia, understanding that, yes, the tax ahead is tough. The road ahead is going to be rough. We would, pass on a country that has so many, decades or centuries of issue that we cannot solve by ourselves. I mean, we can solve it, but some of us in the trenches may not live to see, see it come to fruition. And I want you to go in the fight, understanding that what you're doing is not for you. The tree you are planting, it's not for you to bear the fruit or eat the fruits, but rather for the generation that comes after you. If we have that mindset, then we will continue to focus on doing the right thing rather than focus what in it for me. Because a lot of the time, and some of the things that I've understand about Liberia that kind of impede us or continue to hold us back is individual, greed. What's in it for me? And they can't define what is in it for them than to help with the rest of everybody else, right? The guy would rather take $200 and put it in his pocket, right, than allowing, $500 to benefit the masses. So if we can take ourselves out of that, understanding that the tree we're planting today is not for us to eat from it, but for the generation behind us. And I think with that mindset, we would continue to work without any hindrance or, favoritism or, recognitions. I think for me, I look at myself, as what do I want my legacy to be? I want to change life. I want to make a difference in somebody's life. I don't want, when I die tomorrow, I don't want people counting how many houses or money that I have, but how many lives did I change? How many people did I brought smile to? That's all I want, and I hope, other Liberians can take in from, our discussion here, and let's get to work, let's make our country better. Again, Ayiti, thanks for hosting the show. And it's always a pleasure sharing the platform with you and continue to do, this great work.
Man, that was phenomenal. It was great having you, the incomparable, illustrious Gebah S. Kamara, ladies and gentlemen. This is your show. But just to close the show, I have few questions that I want to leave with you, our viewers. Hopefully you can ponder over them. What does Liberian citizenship truly mean? Again, what does Liberian citizenship truly mean to you? What are our roles and responsibilities as sons and daughters of this soil? How do we stop depending on others to think for us and begin to think for ourselves? Lastly, how do we take sovereignty from slogan to substance? So let me now leave you with a closing charge. Let us leave this space not with heavy hearts, but with burning purpose. Let the illusion of liberation become a lesson for us all. We must reflect. We must reunite. Above all, we must be strategic. Liberia is not dead. She is dormant, and her awakening begins with us. Let the 178-year mark not another celebration of slumber, but a rebirth of substance. And so if you're tuning again, this is the We2 Movement Podcast. I'm bringing nothing but your host, Ayiti Williams, and alongside with me is Gebah Kamara. Gebah, have a pleasant night. I look forward to talking to you here in a few days. Bye for now.
You do the same. Bye.
Bye.
It's all we want to live.
Give me food, give me clothes, give me love. love and give me shelter. Simple.